Some characters were made to break the barrier of progress. Others were made to bend those breakthroughs. Yet when it comes to Viktor, he was made to fail. A bright young mind from a society looked down upon, has a body that has caused only setbacks to his future, and has a really bad run of getting laid. He's by far the most tragic character in Arcane, and through every success, every new horizon unlocked, he will always be one step behind everyone else. Unless he repudiates the last strand of his humanity and become one with the machine itself. This is Viktor, a herald of a new age. Act 2 of Season 2 just got released, and as we move into the last 3 episodes of Arcane, much like how we explored Mbessa last week, the same analysis can be done with a character who also stayed in the background until finally getting his time to shine. His development throughout is probably the best out of many of the characters, on par with Jinx in my eyes. So today, with the knowledge we know now, I want to look at Viktor and where his fate will ultimately be settled when all is said and done. Because, in a world where the brightest minds usually burn out the fastest, Viktor is a case that may alter the very state of Arcane forever. Now, it's hard to think about Viktor, the Arcane character, without comparing his in-game counterpart. In the League of Legends game, he's described as a cybernetically enhanced mad scientist who dreams of evolving humans into beings of pure metal with an emotionally stunted core, because, you know, robots are just better and have very authentic Russian accents. I am so sorry, guys. Otherwise, we know him as just that one guy in the game with a dope-ass laser beam, and that's about it. I mean, he's cool, but when your game has characters that are like samurai, giant scorpions, werewolves, it's pretty hard to stand out, or even get that much fanfare. So when this version of Viktor came on screen, I didn't quite know how they would take his story. Much like everyone else in Arcane, if you divorce these characters from their origins, which, yeah, you kinda wanna, you can find new horizons with them. And thankfully, that is what Studio Fortish did. Viktor is a pretty skinny man, and born in a pretty shitty situation. A physically disabled genius with a knack for science, he was born in the Undercity, and is thus literally looked down upon by the higher society of Piltover. However, he was also able to rise to their standards by performing well in his studies, even becoming an apprentice to the founder Heimerdinger. He is conscientious in the matters concerning the Academy, and was concerned for Jace's unauthorized studies into Hextech, a powerful item capable of great feats but can be destructive in the wrong hands. This interest sparked something in Viktor, seeing as its capabilities were untapped and could unlock a new age for the city. So, at odds with his boss, he collaborated with Jace to find that final element to make Hextech work. And, well, we wouldn't have a TV show if it didn't work now, could we?
No one thinks it can be done.
When you're going to change the world, don't ask for permission.
Viktor is also a very humble scientist, but that could be due to his birthright and status compared to Jace, who is a better public speaker and a much more appealing figure to Piltover society.
You should come up with me. We're partners.
No, not in front of all of them.
As such, Viktor doesn't seem to stand out that much, and thinks that to stay useful to the City of Innovation, he has to keep tinkering down in the lab, even at the risk of his health. He is contrasted very heavily with Jace in terms of goals, but their greatest connection is their symmetrical push to innovate with higher volume. Then again, they may also have a very Sam and Frodo type of relationship, though with the internet, you may have a steamy fanfic hidden in the depths somewhere. And let me tell you, it's spicy. The two can accomplish great feats, but there is only one thing stopping them: time. And that clock is slowing down for our feeble inventor. But to better understand more, we would have to include a new formula, and that is what both Shimmer and Hextech have to do with his story progression. Science is a very potent tool in Arcane, as it provides the series with many ups and downs, evolving the cities of Piltover and Zaun throughout the many acts. If Piltover runs on Hextech, Zaun runs on Shimmer. Shimmer is like a mix of steroids and speed, with healing properties mixed in. A drug that can boost your human capabilities and soothe yourself in times of stress. However, it's also very addictive. It can ruin your mind and body with daily use. For Zaun, it provides them with a means to counter much of Piltover's technology, while keeping the Undercity in control of underground gangs. So when these two elements combine, it becomes a combustible solution to which untold results may follow. This finding was mostly performed by a once highly profiled scientist who only goes by Singed. His relationship with Viktor could be that of freaks having to stick together, lonely and overlooked proteges, performing unholy arts to stand on equal footing with their peers. However, Singed is a man unhinged from his emotions, and the young Viktor is revolted by the aftermath of the process.
You did this?
I thought you understood. The mutation must survive.
Maybe that's why he invested in Hextech, as it provides a much healthier result, seeing that it doesn't just mutate, but instead is artificial. Its metallic nature means it can be controlled better, and Heimerdinger does seem more humane in his oversight. But what could be seen as a lack of foresight for Viktor is that he and his partner were too green to realize its shortcomings. It requires a lot of materials and research to keep investors to fund it, which means more mistakes will be made, and thus will result in slower output. And being slow and falling behind could mean a fumbled career in the case for Viktor. It's unfortunate to see him go through the many events of Arcane, as while he doesn't go into action like the others, his body crumbles, and is destined to die within the remaining weeks. He's pushed in his despair towards Shimmer to keep himself going, knowing the risks and persevering through the pain to get himself to the next stage. This is where he makes a grave error, and it begins to burn the bridges of his most treasured colleagues. Heimerdinger is the first when he sees the results of binding both natural materials like blood or plants to create a hazardous end product, with Heimer growing even more terrified of a history of mass death being repeated.
If ever you've put faith in my guidance, hear me now. I've seen nations destroyed by a single seed, and it looked exactly like this.
Then you have his assistant Sky, who had a genuine unrequited love for Viktor, but was tragically assimilated into Viktor's botched experimentation. But then you have Jace, who is already being pressured by talks of Undercity aggression and attacks, having to save face from Viktor's visits to Zaun.
I told you I knew someone.
Well, you didn't say they were from the Undercity?
What difference does that make?
What They're dangerous.
I'm from the Undercity.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Yet, after what happened to Sky, those moments of running for the first time or extending his expiration date mean nothing if it would only mean harm. As such, Viktor became more adamant about stopping the experiment altogether before he loses all his senses, but needs Jace to follow along. Otherwise, the last shred of human empathy could be gone from Viktor.
We lost ourselves, lost our dream. In the pursuit of great, we failed to do good.
In my eyes, Viktor represents a man who is bound by principles but wants to see evolution take its course. However, he is also terrified by the speed at which evolution happens. Time plays a key factor in allowing for the settlement of new ways to become established, something that Heimer is very understanding of when he's set to give the new inventions a decade or so until being revealed to the public. I think we as humans like to have things in our possession now, like flying cars or artificial intelligence, without realizing that they still need more time in the oven to fully work out all the kinks. Even if it would save his life, Viktor refuses to stoop to this level. And yeah, it was the most dignified call to make. But while Viktor was ready to make the sacrifice, Jace wasn't. And this resulted in Viktor being reborn, defying the nature of death and treading his last bond with his closest partner.
You're my partner.
Our paths diverged long ago. It was affection that held us together.
Which leads us to Viktor becoming the so-called Messiah. Out of many themes that engross the Arcane show, there is one that is often underappreciated, and that is death. We tend to be pretty hesitant about death, as we are prone to think of it with negative connotations. For one thing, it's terrible, it brings suffering, and is unpredictable. It makes us vulnerable, and we are powerless to stop it. However, it's an even greater tragedy when we try to prevent it. That's why there are stories out there that tell us very strictly that trying to beat this natural event can only lead to dire consequences. Pet Sematary, Death Becomes Her, every zombie movie to ever exist. If anything, Arcane characters have this tendency to be revived again from certain death situations, but changed. The best example has to be with Vander, a man who seeks to control his rage and bloodlust and has now become a monster lost in primal. The same can be said of Viktor, whose near death was given new life without consent, and now lives as a hybrid of man and metallic magic. His humanity is still intact, but barely hanging by a thread, and can seem very empathetic to a crowd of people needing salvation. The Undercity dwellers wrought with Shimmer's affliction have been changed, and now live as his collective, adopting a new society bent on taking away the pain and baptizing them anew.
Do you believe in fate, Doctor? Our paths carved before us, guided by an invisible hand.
Not fate. Evolution.
No. Evolution has a destination, not to combat nature, but to supersede it.
Viktor has become a prophet, and does cross into another reason behind the importance of Shimmer and Hextech to Arcane's plot, and that is faith. The faith in Hextech led to profit and innovation surrounded by those who would be greatly affected if they were to suddenly stop. Like when Jace threatened to shut down Hextech production. Investors have faith in the product, and when it goes away, they would be left hopeless. Shimmer provided the Undercity with the means to deal with their suffering, and being labeled as second-class ruffians. It gave them strength and comfort, though they would have to live with the constant withdrawals and physical deformities. Without Shimmer, they would be powerless against Piltover, and their rebellions would be forever pointless. People's beliefs are closely shaped by things such as materials or figures greater than themselves, as many question their place in the world and what to do when life turns for the worst. Whether good or bad, these denominations pull many in with a promise of community and salvation, and to escape the void, which in this case is the inevitability of death. Death by bankruptcy, death by loneliness, death by disease. But ignoring what is natural and humane leads to the deterioration of the value of life itself. That's why Echo's tree is under disease, and why something like Viktor's cult could be very harmful. We don't know why Jace would do something like blasting Viktor at the end of Season 6, but if the Inklings and foreshadowing tell us anything, Viktor's quote-unquote death was only a minor inconvenience, and he now knows what's best for humanity's next evolutionary step. Because if death can be conquered, so too can emotions and human qualities in general. Viktor has become what he swore not to be made into, a being that goes against the order of nature to achieve godhood.
That which inspires us to our greatest good is also the cause of our greatest evil.
For now, we'll leave it at that, and I can't wait to see what Viktor and the others will have leading up to the finale. So let me know down below about your thoughts on Viktor's story in the comments section. Subscribe if you enjoy my content, and if you'd like to get more videos early on, go over and subscribe to my Patreon. It's your Bra Man, signing off for now.